Hello and welcome to the SCG Tour here in Baltimore for the StarCityGames.com Standard Open brought to you by Ultimate Guard. We are in our finals. Osyp Lebedowicz on green-white tokens against Zachary Plott on Bat Company. Zachary was third seed coming into the top 8 from the Swiss, so he will have the choice to be on the player draw. But I'm going to guarantee you he is going to choose to be on the play.
Yeah, and this should be an exciting matchup. Zachary is going to be on the play. He's just barely, one seed higher than Osyp. That's going to be a pretty important factor in this matchup because Zachary is going to be trying to rush Osyp down before Osyp can catch up with his big 5-mana spells like Avacyn and Tragic Arrogance.
Well, it looks like Zachary is on a mulligan to 6. He did keep his opener and scry to the top. He's going to start off with an Evolving Wilds, and Osyp has a Canopy Vista on his first turn. Zachary will sacrifice that Evolving Wilds on his end step, go get a beautiful Mirage Basic Plains, and let's see if he has a 2-drop to start this party off right.
Yeah, 2-drop would be the perfect way to kick off the party. One thing to note that's interesting about this matchup is, generally speaking, the Band Company deck is going to be the aggressor, and the green-white tokens deck is going to be the defender. That said, there is a little bit of variation, and depending on the exact texture of their draws, sometimes Osyp may find himself in the beatdown position, and if Zachary has access to his card advantage elements like Tireless Tractor, Eldrazi Displacer, and Duskwatch Recruiter, you may see Zachary playing the control role if he has that shop set up.
Well, it looks like Zachary does have a Canopy Vista on his second turn tapped. Osyp is going to play a Fortified Village, reveal a Force, and get things started early with a Sylvan Advocate. Let's see if Zachary has a turn 3 play. He does. It's a Tireless Tracker, and he's just going to pass the turn back to Osyp.
And the best thing that Osyp could do here is just Dromoka's Command. It would build up Osyp's board while tearing Zachary's down, and you really want to just take care of Tireless Tracker before it is able to generate any meaningful card advantage. I think so often tempo matters, but card advantage is essentially what it usually boils down to, and if you can cut your opponent off of card advantage, you can really take the wind out of their sails.
Well, a Declaration in Stone from Osyp is going to turn that Tireless Tracker into a clue. Not in the way we normally see it happen, but it will generate a clue, and he's going to attack for 2 with Sylvan Advocate, knocking Zachary down to 18. Zachary's going to play a Force for his turn and pass the turn back with 4 mana. Oh man, I guess I didn't have any plays in my Bad Company deck on turn 4.
Probably not. I think that Osyp wants to use the mana on his turn, but he wants to pick and choose what he potentially runs into a Spell Queller. I think that's one of the real keys to the matchup from the green-white token side, is you want to essentially say in your mind that the creatures or whatever spells that get countered by Spell Queller are essentially on suspend. So Osyp here is choosing to run his Planeswalker into a Spell Queller, which is great because if the Spell Queller got something else, it would be able to potentially attack that Gideon if it came down later on.
All right, so Zachary is going to attack for 2, knock Osyp down to 18. Just play a Prairie Stream and pass the turn back to Osyp.
And now basically Osyp is hoping that Zachary plays more creatures, and Osyp is able to line up a Tragic Arrogance or Avacyn flip so that he can, sweep Zachary's board and then get that Gideon back once the board has been swept. And that will be the stable scenario that he really wants the Gideon to, resolve in.
Well, Osyp does have a 5th land, and he has quite a few options here.
One thing that's unique about Osyp's build of green-white tokens is he's one of the players, and there's a fair number of them, who has chosen to main deck his Evolutionary Leaps. This is a card that not only it lets you find Avacyn more consistently, but it also lets you flip her quite easily. It can be a little bit of a clunky card in certain scenarios, but it can also be very powerful.
Osyp is going to pass the turn with 5 open mana. Zachary will sacrifice his clue on Osyp's end step and untap and go into his turn 6.
And Zachary knows that Osyp is playing 3 Tragic Arrogance. If Zachary was, playing in the Swiss and up against some random opponent, he would probably commit a lot more creatures into the board. But in this situation, he knows he needs to play around Tragic Arrogance.
All right, so we're going to see a Tireless Tracker come down, and then a Canopy Vista, which will generate a clue.
And this is a great way to play around Tragic Arrogance, because if Osyp cast Tragic Arrogance, whether Zachary keeps the Spell Queller or the Tireless Tracker, he's kind of in good shape either way.
An Archangel Avacyn will be flashed in on Zachary's end step by Osyp. And here he's going to go into his 6th turn to see if he can cobble something together. Maybe flipping this Avacyn. Once he gets another land on the battlefield, those Sylvan Advocates are going to start growing.
And this is one of the things that's really great about the green-white tokens deck is if you do play around the sweepers like Tragic Arrogance and hold your threats back, Osyp's just going to play an Avacyn and dominate the board. Here we can see if Osyp had a 6th land drop, he would have 8 power that he could attack with on the board and have Zachary on nearly a 2-turn clock.
Well, he is going to attack Zachary for 4 with that Archangel Avacyn. He will fall down to 13. And here we have a post-combat Evolutionary Leap.
And Osyp doesn't even really need this to resolve, but if it does, he's going to be in great shape.
Alright, Evolutionary Leap is going to resolve. And Zachary actually, it doesn't look like he has a Spell Queller in his hand, but he's still feigned the mana there.
Yeah, pretty nice heads-up play from Zachary, although I'm not 100% sure if Osyp is buying it because that Evolutionary Leap is just going to devastate Zachary's board.
He does have a 6th land for the Sylvan Advocate. He is going to play another Sylvan Advocate, and he's contemplating cashing one in here to flip that Avacyn. That's going to kill both of Zachary's creatures and get that Gideon ally of Zendikar back on the battlefield.
It looks like Zachary's going to have one of his 2 Archangels to be able to play and protect his creatures, but he's only treading water against Osyp's board, and Osyp is going to have a flipped Avacyn and then another Avacyn that he can potentially play. So Osyp is in very good shape, and despite Zachary trying to play around what Osyp can do, and Zachary actually doing it quite successfully, Zachary's only, staying even. He's not really getting ahead.
All right, well, Zachary is going to cash in a clue on Osyp's end step and grow his Tireless Tracker. Archangel Avacyn for Osyp will transform in Zachary's upkeep, but he's going to flash in an Archangel Avacyn of his own, but he will still fall down to 10 from the damage.
And this Tireless Tracker can actually attack now because with that untapped land, it means that Zachary can make it a 5-power attacker. And it does have Indestructible right now, so it can push through that Archangel Avacyn. That would be a pretty nice attack here.
Ooh, Zachary also has a Selfless Spirit.
So I think I would have at least attacked with the Tireless Tracker before playing the Selfless Spirit because the Tracker already has Indestructible, and it's a little scary for Osyp to block that 4-power Tireless Tracker because with another Clue Crack, it would be 5-power. But it seems like Zachary just wants to play defense here.
This seems like it could be a very good Tragic Arrogance turn if Osyp happens to have one.
Yeah, very much so indeed. The other thing that can be nice is Osyp has another Avacyn that Zachary knows about, and Osyp can just attack. All
right, well, he's going to cash in his 4/5 Sylvan Advocate with Evolutionary Leap. That's going to find.
And this deck is actually kind of creature light. It sees its creatures frequently because of those 4 Oath of Nissas, and it gets to play with a lot of them because of the Avacyns and Nissas. Or excuse me, the Nissas and Gideons, but it doesn't actually have that many creatures in the deck, which is why Evolutionary Leap is so good in it, is because it so frequently just finds what you want.
Well, he is going to find a Hangerback Walker and cast a copy of Tragic Arrogance. Let's see what Zachary is going to do.
So if I were Zachary, I'd probably sacrifice the Selfless Spirit in response, just because he doesn't want to be left with only that. And it looks like he is doing that, so that's good. So at this point, Osyp has a few different options. I think I might leave him. Yeah, so what's nice about this is it leaves the Tireless Tracker on the board, which can gain some value, but Osyp is already so far ahead, it's going to be tough for Zachary to just crack a bunch of clues to dig for stuff to catch back up. Zachary needs to spend his mana deploying to the board, and this Gideon is going to be able to do a lot of work not only keeping this tireless tracker at bay, but also just generating more value and potentially keeping up with the card advantage that tireless tracker presents.
So Tragic Arrogance is going to leave Osyp with an Evolutionary Leap and an Avacyn the Purifier. He's going to leave Zachary with a Tireless Tracker and a Clue. The Gideon from under that Spell Queller will be cast. It's going to bring a Knight ally along with it. And Avacyn the Purifier is going to attack for 6 and knock Zachary Plott down to 4.
Yeah, if Zachary can't kill this Gideon, he's going to be facing 2 lethal attackers. And the fact that Zachary is at 4 is particularly relevant because Osyp has another Avacyn. So even if Zachary is somehow able to deal with Osyp's board, that Flash Flyer, can just sort of come out at a awkward time for Zachary to deal with and kill him.
Well, here's a Duskwatch Recruiter for Zachary. Gideon is going to plus, and both Gideon and Avacyn the Purifier are going to enter the red zone. Zachary does have another copy of Archangel Avacyn, but Osyp is going to flash a Dramoka's Command, and he's going to take game 1 in our Baltimore finals. Green-white tokens over Bad Company. Osyp Lebedowicz is 1 game away from securing this win. Let's take a look at the player sideboards and see how we think they're going to change things up. We have 2 Tireless Tracker, 2 Stasis Snare, 1 Clip Wings, 1 Aerial Volley, 2 Lambholt Pacifist, 2 Declaration in Stone, 2 Linvala the Preserver, 2 Nissa Vastwood Seer, and 1 Quarantine Field. How do you think he's going to sideboard?
So the cards that I like are 1 Aerial Volley. I like both Linvala the Preserver. And this time I'm going to say I only want him to play 1 Nissa Vastwood Seer. That's because that's all I do. I think 2 is too many.
I think 2 is too many. And on Zachary's side, we have an Ojutai's Command, 2 Tameo Field Researcher, 2 Negate, 2 Tragic Arrogance, 2 Declaration in Stone, 1 Tireless Tracker, 2 Nissa Vastwood Seer, and 3 Lambholt Pacifist. What do we think Zachary's going to bring in?
So I said it before and I'll say it again. I think that the Bant Company players in this matchup should try to play aggressive and just try to deploy a bunch of threats and then use Negate and Ojutai's Command to counter the green-white tokens, Tragic Arrogances and Avacyns, because that's their way to catch up. Zachary does have the Eldrazi Displacer, which means that he's going to be able to play a longer game against green-white tokens a little better than some of the other versions of Bant Company. That said, I would still prefer if he just kept his deck clean and aggressive, and I don't think that he wants to play mid-range mirror, but he may think otherwise.
Fair enough. Now, looking through all of these decks in our top 8, there are a lot of basic lands because things have changed out. Plains, islands, and forests in specific. And if you want to get some really cool basic lands or just any full art lands for your deck, check out the weekly sale over at StarCityGames.com. It does end Monday at 10:59 a.m., so act fast where you can save on select full art basic lands. Unhinged, Unglued, Battle for Zendikar, or the original Zendikar, foil and non-foil. That weekly sale ends Monday at 10:59 a.m. Don't miss out. They will go fast.
And I should, clarify a little bit. I generally prefer if the Bant Company players in this matchup just try to stay lean and aggressive, but I know that that's not actually a popular opinion. I have my own perspective of the game. Everyone has their own kind of take on it, and I don't want everyone out there to think that there's only one way to play the matchup and Boz knows all or anything like that. One of the great things about Magic is it's just such a complicated game. There's so many times you'll be in a situation where there's a fork in the road, and you can make valid,
arguments.
Yeah, valued arguments for each path, and I prefer being a little bit more aggressive in this matchup if possible. A lot of players choose to play it a little bit more mid-rangey. I think both options are valid. I prefer aggression, but we'll have to see what Zachary does because he's the one who's in the semifinals right now, or excuse me, finals.
Yeah, this is the finals. Get it right, Boz.
Yeah, I'm wrong all the time.
Are we all?
Don't even know what match I'm commentating. What matchup is this?
This is Green-White Tokens and Band Company. Now, next weekend is going to be the SCG Regionals and the Pro Tour for Eldritch Moon in Sydney is going to be happening. How much of the results of this tournament do you think is going to affect those tournaments? Are we just going to see a bunch of Band Company lists trying to hate each other out? Do we think that people are going to jump on Green-White Tokens like you've been preaching for a while? Do we think the Blue-Green Crush deck is going to make an appearance at the Pro Tour maybe?
I think that there's definitely something to the blue-green crush deck. I know for me, you know, in between rounds, I was thinking about how am I going to sideboard against that deck? You know, what do I have to do to try to win that? I think that generally speaking, there will still be a lot of Bant company. I think it's just a popular, fun, good deck. And because of that, even if it, you know, it isn't actually the best deck in the format, I think it'll continue to be one of the most popular decks in the format and one of the more successful ones. But I think that, you know, whenever you go to an event like that, you should just treat it as an open field and just try to have a good plan against everything. You know, you can hedge and have a little bit more hate for what you think will be popular, but I think that the best strategy is just sort of look at all the decks, try to figure out what you're going to do against all of them, and you know, also keep your eye out for things that, you know, break out, like the Black-White Angels deck or the Crush of Tentacles deck. Those are two decks that have been picking up traction, and there may be something to them. And you know, you want to take a good look at them to figure out how much you should be afraid of them, and whether or not maybe you should be playing them.
I can get down with that. All right, we are going into our finals here between Osyp Lebedowicz on green-white tokens against Zachary Plott on Bant Company. Osyp is currently up a game. He did win that game on the draw as well. So Zachary Plott is going to be on the play here as we head into game 2. His tournament life is on the line. He needs to win this game to even it up to force a game 3. Osyp might smell blood in the water. Let's see if he can close this out.
Yeah, on these early turns, turns 2 through 5 specifically, the thing that I think is important is that both players are using all of their mana. That's one of the best ways to pull ahead in the game, and that's also one of the best ways to make sure that you don't fall behind. So that's something that's going to be important to both players. If Zachary starts holding up his Spell Queller mana open, but he doesn't have anything to do with that mana, if Osyp doesn't play anything into it, you know, he can be in a little bit of a tough spot. And it looks like we're actually seeing one of our first sideboard cards. This is a card that Zachary brought in from the sideboard, and I think that this is something that he's bringing in to try to be more aggressive.
So Zachary is going to start off with an Evolving Wilds and a Lambholt Pacifist on his second turn. Osyp does have a 2-drop and a Hangerback Walker for 1. So let's see if Zachary is able to maybe put a counter on his Lambholt Pacifist. Nope, looks like he is just going to take another point of damage to cast that Sylvan Advocate. Going to play Lumbering Falls tapped and pass the turn back to Osyp.
And a lot of times with Bant Company, I've heard a lot of people say that they like having Lambholt Pacifists, particularly when they're on the play, to get some aggression going. And if you get lucky and your opponent just doesn't have a 2-drop, which a lot of the decks in the format don't actually have good redundancy at the 2-mana slot, you know, you can kind of get them. But this green-white tokens deck, it generally plays a fair number of 2-drops, and it has those 4 Oath of Nisses. And while Lambholt Pacifist is great when it can attack, a lot of the times it can't. So, you know, that is a little on the awkward side.
All right, so Osyp is just going to play an Evolutionary Leap and level his Hangerback Walker on his third turn. Zachary's going to attack for 2 with the Sylvan Advocate. He's going to play a Tireless Tracker and then play an Evolving Wilds and sacrifice it to get a couple of clues. That is one way that he can make a 4-power creature to allow that Lambholt Pacifist to attack.
And right now, Osyp's source of card advantage is this Evolutionary Leap, and Zachary's source of card advantage is the Tireless Tracker. In an early game scenario like this, I think the Tireless Tracker is a much better advantage to have than the Evolutionary Leap. The Evolutionary Leap, it doesn't impact the board as much, and it can be a lot more mana intensive than the Tireless Tracker. Once we get into a mid and late game scenario, then the Evolutionary Leap will probably start to prove a more useful tool than the Tireless Tracker is.
All right, so Osyp is going to draw for his turn. Let's see what he starts out with. He's going to level his Hangerback Walker. He's going to Dramoka's Command, put a counter on it, and fight off the Tireless Tracker. And he's just going to pass the turn back to Zachary.
And this is kind of nice because Osyp can sacrifice this inside of combat to have all 4 of the tokens potentially block this Sylvan Advocate if it tries to get into the red zone. And by doing it that way, he would be able to dodge Declaration in stone. But it looks like he's just fine taking the damage and having a big 4/4.
Zachary is going to attack for 2, knock Osyp down to 16, play his 5th land, and pass the turn. Since no spell was cast, that Lambholt Pacifist is going to transform into a Lambholt Butcher.
Yeah, and on turn 2, this 4/4 would have been great. But at this stage in the game, the 4/4, you know, it's probably not going to be the biggest creature on the battlefield. This Hangerback Walker can level up to a 5/5. If Zachary tries to Reflector Mage with the Hangerback Walker, Osyp can still level up to a 5/5 and then sacrifice it to get 5 1/1 Thopters. So.
All right, so Osyp did find a Hangerback Walker off of his Oath of Nissa. He's going to play another Plains and cast this Hangerback Walker. Zachary will let it resolve. It will come into play. It will enter the battlefield with one counter on it, and Osyp will pass the turn back. Zachary is going to sacrifice a clue to draw a card. And we're going to do it again. So he's just going to draw a couple of cards with those clues that he got off of the Tireless Tracker. And go into his 6th turn. 2 spells were cast by Osyp. So on Zachary's upkeep, the Lambholt Butcher will transform back to a Lambholt Pacifist. A little more tame.
Yeah, if that Lambholt Pacifist had been a Duskwatch Recruiter, this game would be a lot different. Zachary would have been able to push more damage, and he would have a little bit more digging power to find some more powerful creatures like, Reflector Mage or Archangel Avacyn. Or Eldrazi Displacer. Eldrazi Displacer would have been really nice, a little bit early. I'm not sure if he actually would have had a good place to use it, but he does have a Yavimai Coast, so he could activate it if he had it.
Well, Osyp is going to level his Hangerback Walker up to 5. On Zachary's end step, he is just passing with 5 mana available. Osyp will play a land and pass the turn back. He's very happy to play this game where he can build up these Hangerback Walkers and take advantage of that evolutionary leap. Zachary's going to cast the Collected Company on Osyp's end step. Let's see what we can find.
And if Osyp can find a Gideon or a Nissa, he can create an Air Force that is very difficult for Zachary to deal with. These 2 Hangerback Walkers, they can both level up. Osyp can sacrifice them both. And with an emblem, he can crack Zachary for 16, putting him down to 2.
That's a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage.
So Osyp is going to stop Zachary here after he's gotten his cards. Maybe we're thinking of an Avacyn and cash in the small Hangerback Walker?
Yeah, that would be a nice play. I believe Zachary only has 5 lands, so it would wipe Zachary's board.
All right, well, Osyp is just going to allow his turn to pass, and Zachary is going to draw for his turn. Let's see if he has a 6th land to level up these Sylvan Advocates.
And this is a really tough spot for Zachary because he hasn't done a whole lot of damage to Osyp. Osyp's deck generally has the more powerful cards, and Osyp has the ground pretty well locked up. Osyp has a lot of options from here. He has flash threats, he has Evolutionary Leap, he can level up his Hangerback Walkers. Zachary doesn't have as many options.
All right, so Zachary is just going to pass the turn with 5 mana available. Osyp is going to level up both of his Hangerback Walkers. Let's see if he cashes one into the Evolutionary Leap.
The other thing that's nice about these Hangerback Walkers is if Zachary ends up deploying a bunch of threats to the board, Osyp can potentially cast Tragic Arrogance, sacrifice the bigger Hangerback Walker, keep the smaller one, and then we'll look at a board state where Osyp has 1 Hangerback Walker and a bunch of Thopters to the single creature of Zachary. Again, one of the reasons why Tragic Arrogance is so good in this Green-White Tokens deck is not only because of the fact that the Green-White Tokens deck has some individually powerful creatures that are good on their own and some Planeswalkers, but also because of Hangerback Walker.
Well, Osyp is going to take his turn and try and cast a Nissa Vastwood Seer. Zachary's thinking about using a Spell Queller on it.
And Zachary kind of needs to counter this. He can't afford to let this resolve because Osyp would just get a 7th land, play it, flip the Nissa, and then that would also start generating a bunch of value, and Zachary wouldn't really be able to mount a good offense against it. So I like that Zachary is trying to target Osyp's sources of card advantage with his disruption. That's basically the best he can do right now, but it's still he's still in a tough spot. He's got a lot of cards, but he's just not really doing a whole lot.
Zachary was able to counter that Nissa with his Spell Queller, and Osyp just passed the turn back to him. Zachary has not been able to find a 6th land, which is one of the things that we've seen these Bant Company decks struggle to all weekend long, is just finding that 6th land to get into 2 spell a turn territory. Spell Queller is going to attack. Osyp is going to level up his smaller Hangerback Walker to 3, and then cash it in with the Evolutionary Leap. That is going to put 3 1/1 Thopters on the battlefield.
And if Zachary has a Tragic Arrogance, this will be a pretty good spot for him, because what he can do is he'll obviously lose his Spell Queller and a lot of his stuff, but he'll be able to kill the Nissa, kill all but one of the Thopters, kill all but the Hangerback Walker, and kill the Evolutionary Leap, leaving just the 6/6 Hangerback Walker in play, and the Oath of Nissa to Zachary's, Sylvan Advocate. And while that isn't a great scenario for him, it's probably a better scenario than the scenarios he's in right now.
Well, Osyp will get 3 1/1 Thopters and a Sylvan Advocate. The Thopters are going to block the Spell Queller. Let's see if Zachary has any responses.
And I like the fact that Osyp is sacrificing the smaller Hangerback Walker instead of the bigger one, and I think it's specifically because Tragic Arrogance is on his radar. Like I said before, I don't really like it in the Bant Company deck, but he did see it just this previous round from a great player like Chris Anderson. So,
All right, well, 2 of the Thopters are going to die. Nissa Vastwood Seer is going to be recast, and Zachary is going to counter it and draw a card with Ojutai's Command. So it looks like he does not have Tragic Arrogance. He's just trying to find a 6th land.
Yeah, and I like this play simply for the fact that it continues to keep Nissa off the board, and it digs Zachary a little deeper to find some sort of meaningful action.
All right, well, he will pass the turn back to Osyp, who will level up that Hangerback Walker to 7 counters on his end step. Zachary is tapped down low, so we might see, oh, here is that Tragic Arrogance.
And so Osyp can keep his Evolutionary Leap, his Hangerback Walker, and his Thopter, because he can name one as the artifact he keeps, one as the creature he keeps, and then cause Zachary to lose a bunch of his stuff. So I believe that Oath of Nissa should be dead, but this puts Osyp in a great situation.
All right, so the Thopter and the 7/7 Hangerback Walker are going to crash in. Looks like Zachary's just going to take all of the damage and fall down to 10.
Yeah, and now Zachary needs to rebuild. One of the good ways for him to catch up is a Tragic Arrogance, but that doesn't even look particularly good on this board. A Reflector Mage would be the common way to deal with Hangerback Walker or Eldrazi Displacer, but because Osyp has this Evolutionary Leap on the board, those plans are not really going to work.
All right, well, here we have a Tamiyo Field Researcher from Zachary Plott. Osyp's going to read it so we can see what exactly it does. He will be able to keep that Hangerback Walker and the Thopter tapped down for a turn, but Osyp can just cash in that Hangerback Walker for 6 tokens. And if he has some kind of Anthem effect, this is just a lethal attack.
Yeah, he could have an Anthem effect. He could have Avacyn and just flip it with the Evolutionary Leap. This is pretty dicey. What Zachary really needs here to start things going is a Jermoka's Command just to kill that Evolutionary Leap, and then after that he needs to follow things up with either a Eldrazi Displacer or a Reflector Mage on that big.
All right, so Hangerback Walker is going to be sacrificed to Evolutionary Leap. It's going to give him 7 Thopters, and there's another Hangerback Walker. There's just been a very good display of how powerful Evolutionary Leap is in conjunction with Hangerback Walker.
Yeah. And sometimes the games play out in a way that's just too fast for Evolutionary Leap to generate a lot of value. Like I was mentioning early in the game, Osyp was kind of behind, but Zachary just wasn't able to get enough pressure, not enough aggression. And now that we're at this stage, Evolutionary Leap is just infinite card advantage.
Especially now that there are 7 more Thopters on the battlefield that can be turned into creatures. So the attack is going to knock Zachary down to 3, and here is an Archangel Avacyn.
And this is likely to be game. Osyp Lebedowicz, ladies and gentlemen, he is not one of the mainstays on the tour, but he is a great player. He's playing a great deck. This is my favorite pick for the event, and here we see he's just kind of doing it all. Zachary's going to try one last time if he can cast Collected Company, potentially hit a Reflector Mage. That would be an unbelievable turn of events to deal with this Avacyn. He'll still have a long slog, and we'll have to see if he can actually do it.
All right, Collected Company is going to happen in response to the Avacyn Transform trigger. Let's see if we can find a Reflector Mage to return it back to Osyp's hand.
And this could be game. Zachary has to take a good look at these 6 cards. If he does not have a Reflector Mage, he's out of it.
He does not have a Reflector Mage, and ladies and gentlemen, Osyp Lebedowicz is going to win this match and this tournament. Green-white tokens. You heard it from the mouth of the boss. Osyp Lebedowicz, ladies and gentlemen, your champion, taking down the StarCityGames.com Baltimore Standard Open with green-white tokens. Congratulations, my friend.
Yeah, truly a great match, and I think green-white tokens hasn't been as popular lately. Even in last season, it wasn't really heralded as one of the best decks like I thought it should be, even though it had won the Pro Tour. Band Company and other decks kind of took the spot of Flavor of the Week. This green-white tokens deck is just so solid, and even though it didn't get any new tools from the format, we can see that in Osyp's main deck, he's actually not playing any new cards whatsoever. He is